This podcast is brought to you by Bernie's Tap and Grill. It's family owned and operated since 1954. Located across from Wrigley Field on Clark and Waveland. My dad hit a few home runs on the Waveland Avenue, and Bernie's was my dad's favorite place to go. It's got delicious food, 4 full-service bars, an awesome beer garden, a sidewalk patio cafe, and a cool upstairs area. It's the place I've always met my friends at before and after games. Go on by and tell Linda Dillman Jeff Santo sent you. Bernie's Tap and Grill, where you go when you go to Wrigley.
Sit back and relax. It's time for peanuts, popcorn, and Cracker Jacks.
Hey, how's it going? I'm your host, Jeff Santo. I'm here with my wife, Christie.
Hello, hello. So we have some mail. It went into the spam box, so
It did.
We are so sorry that this happened. Alan Simon is who wrote us.
Well, we can't help if it goes in the spam
I know, but
thing,
I feel
so why are you
bad.
sorry?
I know.
Okay, you don't have to
though.
be.
Okay, so he says, Jeff, I came across your podcast yesterday for the first time on Apple and immediately began listening to some of your episodes while I was out riding my bike, specifically both parts of your interview with Pete LaCock and the one with Billy Williams. I was especially intrigued with the crackerjack calls with Jim Boudreau and Joey Banks and their common background playing baseball, apparently with your brother also, at Scottsdale Community College. I was at ASU at that time from 1976 to 1980, and I didn't realize that SCC had become sort of a home for next generation Chicago Cubs baseball.
Well, let's stop there for a second. Yeah, hopeful. Hopeful. Didn't happen. Okay, go forward.
Wish I had gone to see some games then. I plan to subscribe to your podcast and hear the subscriber-only episodes, especially the one with Joe Malfitano about the 1969 Cubs.
That's a good one.
And we'll do a rating on Apple as well. And the letter goes on.
Yeah, he went on to talk about this triple play that my dad turned at third that he witnessed in 1972 against the Pirates. Hot shot to my dad, stepped on third over to Beckert, over to Banks. No, I think it was Pepitone. But anyway, he said it was fascinating because it was so quick. And he also, that was when he was a little kid, also took score. So he's got some scorecards of every game that he went to back then. I think there were, I don't know, a handful of them of where my dad played in every game. So he said, do you guys want to see this? I have these scorecards. So yes, send them to our podcast, jeff.ppcpodcast@gmail.com. So this episode has another Cubs legend, Don Kessinger.
How about that?
Oh, man, it was so cool to talk to him, and can't wait for everyone to hear this.
And the crackerjack.
And the crackerjack is Carolyn Kessinger. It is a Kessinger day for us, and
It's a husband and wife day.
husband and wife, they are truly a baseball family. They have 3 generations of professional baseball players, starting with Don in 64, and then Keith and Kevin, his sons, and then now Gray, who is their grandson, and he's playing for the Houston Astros right now in the big leagues. It's amazing. Their relationship, it goes back since 65. They've been together 58 years, going to be 60 years in 2 years.
How about that?
How about that is right. And just the other day, 888, we had 15 years.
We just celebrated our 15 years of meeting each other.
Right.
I was at the airport flying to a friend's wedding, and
I was flying to a film festival.
And I missed my plane.
And I was in the bar getting a beer because I was nervous to fly on my plane.
And I saw this curly-haired guy because you had this long curly hair.
I did have long hair at the time.
And I saw your tattoos, and I was like, I'm going to go hit on him. And I'm like, excuse me, do I know you from somewhere?
Yeah, and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, all right, I don't know. Maybe you do.
You're trying to figure it out. And you give me your card. And
oh, no. You're going to bring out the card thing.
I'm going to bring out the card.
Well, because I was going to a festival, so I had a card for the festivals.
Yeah,
we had these Jake Corners.
It says Jake's Corner on there because that's your movie. You were promoting it.
And I couldn't believe that you said you knew of the movie because no one had seen the movie yet, and it was an independent, so...
I actually read your words, before meeting you because I took an acting class from the girl who did the castings.
Who did the extras for us, which I couldn't believe that you said, I saw your poster. I read some lines from the movie. I said, what? And yeah, you told me that. I couldn't believe it, but that was kind of like...
Yeah, so a shout out to Helen McCready for her acting
Destiny.
class in Arizona.
Yeah, right. And it was just, the best day of my life, meeting you.
Right?
Yeah.
Kismet.
There you go. Well, enjoy the show, Don Kessinger and Carolyn Kessinger. They got 58 years. Can't wait for you to hear this.
Enjoy.
Hey, everybody. I was in Encino, California the other day at a meeting. And I get out of there, and I'm hungry as can be, man. And there's traffic, LA traffic. And I'm thinking, I got to get some side streets here like my dad did in Wrigley. And I wind up at Coldwater Canyon and Riverside Drive, and there's Gino's East Pizza. Boom, park the car, go inside, and I order a tavern pizza. Cheese and sausage, my favorite, top 3 foods of all time. And there's the owner, Dan and Todd, and they're like, hey man, you're on the TV. I'm like, yeah, right guys. They love to razz me once in a while. And sure enough, I was. My dad's documentary from MLB was playing. But I had no time for that. I had to eat my pizza. I devoured that thing in a minute. I was so hungry. You got to go to Gino's East for the greatest pizza around. Gino's East, LA. Put it in your Google's map right now. It's going to be our place to go, me and Christie, on Friday's happy hour. Go to Gino's East, right near Coldwater Canyon and the 101. Put it in your Google's map now. We'll see you there. My special guest is one of baseball's best shortstops. He signed with the Cubs in 1964 and soon became their starting shortstop right beside my father at third. A 6-time All-Star, a 2-time Gold Glover, a 1-time Major League manager, a Division I head baseball coach, and a lifetime great human being. Don Kessinger, it's so good to have you on the show.
Oh, Jeff, thank you so very much. It's been too long, my friend.
It sure has. Wow, Don. Don, you have such a profound family baseball story. Where did it all begin for you?
Oh, gosh, I grew up in a small town in Arkansas and just loved sports, and had an older brother that, worked with me a lot, and I had a dad that loved sports, and so I don't know, that's all it seems like I ever did was play some kind of ball. So just blessed to be able to do that.
Wow. Now, Carolyn, your wife, you were both from Forest City, Arkansas. Is that true?
That's correct.
When did you guys meet, and where did you meet?
Well, the truthful story of that is that I'm 4 years older than Carolyn. So, when I was a senior in high school and she was in the 8th grade, neither one of us thought much about that. But then after I came to college and a few years later, and anyway, I just when I was back home, and we just kind of got together, and gosh, what a wonderful time it's been for us, 58 years, and we're hanging in there.
That's amazing, Don. Did you know each other, though, when she was, young? Were you guys familiar with each other in the same town?
Oh, yeah. We
really?
Did. Sure we did. In fact, her dad was a doctor in town, and he and his partner was our doctors, and so, yes, I've known him for a long time and forever, I guess. And but just been lucky to hang in there with her. I'm going to be as nice as I can to her and hope she'll hang on a little longer.
Absolutely, man. Now, in high school, Don, you were a 4-sport All-State and All-America athlete? Unbelievable.
Well, I don't know. It seems like the older I get, the better I was. And but yeah, I played whatever sport was in season. I'll tell you an interesting deal on since I ended up in baseball for so long. My high school, I came through with some great athletes, truly great athletes, and especially in football, we were really good. We won the state a couple of times, and we had 7 guys off our high school football team that went to either the University of Arkansas or to Ole Miss or one of the Division I schools. But what I was going to tell you that was really interesting, I mean, it's easy coming along with a bunch of great athletes, but my high school did not have nobody in Arkansas really did at that time. They had given up baseball. We did not have a baseball team in my high school. Neither did most any of the others. It was really a spring was a track sport, and that was from the emphasis on football. And all the football coaches loved their athletes to be running track in the spring, and so that's what we all ended up doing. Now, I played like 5 years of American Legion baseball all summer, so that's where we got our baseball during that time. And we had a guy that was when I was a 10th grader, Jeff. We had a senior guy named B. Lindsay, who was the best running back I guess I've still ever seen, but he was a really outstanding baseball player, and he was the first guy. Excuse me. He was the first guy that Frank Broyles signed to a football scholarship at the University of Arkansas, and but after his senior year, he signed a pro baseball senior year in high school. He signed a pro baseball contract with the Cardinals, and never got to the University of Arkansas. And shoot, that's a no-no in Arkansas not to do that. So
wow,
yeah. But so we did have 1 year. 1 year, our high school allowed us to play baseball, and it was really his senior year. And after he signed, instead of going to Arkansas to play football, I guess that ended our baseball for a while. But we did finish second in the state that 1 year.
That's amazing. Now, Don, what position did you play in football?
I played quarterback.
You did? Wow. Okay, you and my dad both.
See, that way I could call plays, and if it got too rough, I just hand that sucker off.
You know, it's amazing the athletes that you guys were back then. My dad too. All you guys, you played every sport, and you were just so good in each one. You were pure athletes. And then you went on to college at Ole Miss. And you played two sports in college, basketball and baseball.
I did. It's so hard to do that today because they overlap so much. But I was blessed to be able to do that. So it was good. By the way, speaking of your dad, and athletes, we when we were in Chicago, we had a Cub basketball team that we played during the winter. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, we had those jerseys down in our basement.
Oh, yeah. Your dad was a good basketball player, too.
Yeah, he was a quarterback like you, too, a great quarterback in high school, too, And getting back to you playing basketball in college, I mean, that's a Division I college that you're playing both sports in. And did you think that you could be a basketball player, too? Could you have gone that way?
I don't know, Jeff, whether I could. And I was kind of, you remember me, I was kind of skinny. I was a little skinny kid, and I did have an opportunity to try to do that, but I just decided that I'd rather stick with baseball. It seemed to be my best career sport. So, but I did have an opportunity to try to do that, and it was hard not to try because I love both sports.
God, and that move that you had in the hole where you backhand and you jump up, that came from basketball, huh? Where you just didn't even plant, and you just threw in the air. That was amazing.
That thing, some of your best stuff ends up being born out of necessity. And so when I first tried to do it like the book says do it, you go catch the ball, plant your right foot, and throw it. And I was kind of a lanky guy, and I didn't get stopped very good doing that, and I wasn't throwing enough guys out. And so I just started trying to figure out the best way for me to do that. And one of our coaches, Joe Amalfitano, exactly. But he's a great guy and a good coach. So he and I used to go out early before other people came out, and he would just hit me ball after ball after ball in the hole, and I'd try to do it several different ways. And he'd use a stopwatch from the time the ball hit my glove till I could get it to the first baseman. And we figured out how I did it best. And the way it did was either just throwing it on the run or jump and run or whatever And it worked for me. It worked for me, but you got to figure out what's the best way for you to do it.
Right. It's just amazing. And they called it. Fergie called it the down pat. What did that mean? Is that what he called it?
Well, I'm not sure where that got started or exactly what it means. I just took it as a compliment, though.
Right. Oh, it was so graceful, man, to see you make that play all the time. Now, how did the Cubs come into view for you? Because they didn't have a draft back then, and it was still
that's dating me. That tells you how old I am. But they didn't have the draft started the next year after I graduated from college, and at that time, when the season was over, whoever was interested in signing you just had to make an offer to you, and which probably was beneficial to me. And so we had a day set that in my hometown in Arkansas, and Coach Swayze, my college coach, and my dad and I sat down, and I don't know, there were probably 7 or 8 teams that showed up to make an offer. And the Cubs, the Yankees, the Phillies, there are several Cardinals. But I thought after we got through and they made some offers to us, none of which would have made me rich, you understand, but
right.
But an opportunity to play. And in fact, the Cubs didn't offer me the most money. It was close, but they didn't. But when we sat down, my dad and Coach Swayze and I talked about it and looked at it, and it was really Coach Swayze, my college coach, who was great. And he said, look, he said, I've really always kind of been a Yankee guy and all that, but he said, truthfully, we got to look at this as looking at what they have coming up at their position and which way can you maybe get there the quickest, because that's where you're going to end up making it or not making it when you get to big leagues. And so the Cubs appeared to us to have a little bit more opening at the middle infield than some others. So that's the way we went, and it turned out to work.
God, that's a lot like what my dad's stepdad did for him. Just said, the Cubs could be your quickest way to the bigs. And wow, what a move for both you guys, man.
No, it really did. And Ernie, the Cubs had a pretty good shortstop before that named Ernie Banks, and but they had moved him to first base, so that kind of took that out. That took out of the equation too. So but yeah, I don't think it would have been the Cubs I chose if Ernie had still been in his prime playing shortstop.
Yeah, of course. Now, you won the Kenny Hubbs Award later in your baseball career. When you came up, that was right after Kenny Hubbs died. Did you feel the heaviness of his passing then?
I did. Yes, I did. And I didn't really know him personally. I just knew of him. But Beckert was in AAA at the time I had come out, and I was in AA. We actually both ended up with the Cubs, and he was a shortstop in AAA. But they made Beck a second baseman, and I came up as a shortstop because they had lost Kenny Hubbs. And so they moved Beck over to learn to play that position. And so we were both kind of learning together, and which worked out good for us.
Wow. Now, you came up, you signed in 64, and then you actually got to the bigs in late in 64, right?
Well, I went up at the end of the year in 64, which they used to call up more people at the end of the year than they do now. But I went up, and then the next year I was sent back to AA again, and I was only there about 6 weeks when they called me up, and blessed to stay there a long time.
Yeah, 65, man. And you and Beck. So tell me about that. What was it like when you and Beck got together? What was that relationship like to begin with?
Oh, it's good. It was good. Beck's a good guy, a fun guy, great to be around. He works hard. And we had a coach named Alvin Dark, who was a great baseball player and a great middle infielder himself. So we were fortunate to have somebody like that. And so Alvin talked to Beck and me, the kids, as he called us. And boy, that was a long time ago. And So we would go out early and practice. He'd take us out 20, 30 minutes before other people came on the field, so we wouldn't be having to dodge balls and batting practice and all that kind of stuff. And he really worked hard with Beck and me, and through our whole career, that paid off a lot. We still, use the things that we talked about, turning double plays, knowing where the other guy always wanted to throw, no matter where the ball was to you. And I give Alvin Dark a lot of credit for that. Wow. Because, he was very determined in that, and he worked for us.
Wow. And when you first got there, what was your first impression of my dad, like when you met him? Because those guys, Billy, my dad, Nerdy.
Of course, I was very aware of Ron Santo, and knew what a great ball player he was, and I was just so anxious to see him and to meet him, and that's the truth. And playing beside him was really it was just a dream come true. But let me tell you what, I found out when he quit, when he retired. I found out just how much ground he covered at third base, because I started trying to have to make outs on catches on balls I didn't used to have to catch. Because he played a little bit of a wide third base, which I believe in, because there are more balls hit between short and third than there are between third and the bag. Right. I mean, third baseman and the bag. And so he played a little bit of a wide, but he had great range to his left, and so there were numerous balls that I thought I was going to have to get, but he'd cut it off and throw them out. He was a Golden Glove third baseman too, but as a shortstop, he just cut off so many balls that you're talking about making a backhand and throwing in the hole. It was easier because he cut off some of those I couldn't possibly have thrown anybody out. So, it was good. We had a good ball club. Best I can tell you.
You did.
Team.
You did, man. And you and him, you at short, I mean, you led the league in assists 3 years. You covered so much ground. So you guys had that left side really, really covered, man. I mean, unbelievable. What an infield. Now, when DeRocher came, I read, and I didn't know this, Don, that he made you a switch hitter.
Well, I'm going to be straightforward with that. What happened with the switch hitter deal, and I do give Leo a lot of credit for this. I felt like I wanted to stay in the big leagues, and I thought defensively I could, but I had to do something to get better after my first year hitting. And so I go back to Alvin Dark. Actually, I was sitting in the dugout just before a game started one day, and toward the end of the year, and I said, Alvin, I'd like to see if I can switch hit. I just think that would really help me. And he just said, look, the way you play defense, you can be in the big leagues a long time, but if you'll learn to hit 250, 260, 270, they'll quit looking for shortstops. So he said, if you can do that, but he said, I'll make this recommendation to you. We've got about 1 week left in the season, and just don't say anything. Go home. I was living in Oxford at the time, at where Ole Miss. He said, just go home, go back to Ole Miss, and get in a gym or somewhere all winter, and have somebody throw tennis balls to you hard, hitting left-handed, and from close enough to really throw it hard. And every once in a while, he said, throw it at you, because one thing you're going to find, I think, is that never having hit left-handed, you're going to have a hard time getting out of the way of the ball because you're falling completely opposite. And I wouldn't have ever thought about that, to tell you the truth, till the ball hit me. And then I thought about it. But I did just what he said. And I came home and I hit in the winter, all winter. And in fact, kind of an aside from that, Archie Manning was playing football at Ole Miss, and he'd come over and throw balls to me, and I'd throw some to him, and just, he was a really good baseball player. And so, it's just, as you look back on your life, you just wonder how some things happen to happen. But it was really good. And, it was really good. And I went to spring training, and it was Leo DeRocher's first year. And we had an early spring training camp in Escondido, California, which I didn't know where in the world that was, but we went, especially us young guys, went early. And so I asked Lou Klein, who was a hitting instructor, I said, Lou, I really kind of worked on this winter, and I'd like to see if I can switch it. And this was Leo's first year, and you know that Leo controlled everything. And Lou said, well, let me tell you. He said, well, let me just do this. Let me talk to Leo about it, and I'll get back to you. I said, okay, I'll be fine. Well, I never heard back from Lou. So we started he came back and said, I think they want you to just work on hitting the ball to right field, go the other way, do what you can. I said, okay. So that's what we did, and I never thought about it again, really, until sometime in April or May, I guess, that year, 1966, I was taking batting practice, regular daily batting practice, and Leo called me off to the side, and he said, I just heard yesterday that you had wanted to switch it. I said, well, I want to try. And he said, let me see you take a few swings. So I got in the cage, and I hit a few balls, and when I got out, as only Leo could really say it, he said, hey, shoot, you swing better that way than you do the other way. So I said, well, yeah, I've only worked 20-something years the other way. So, but anyway, so he said, let's just work on it. And I said, okay. So I took batting practice that day, Jeff. And the next day, I took batting practice again, all left-handed. And during that next game, and that year we lost 100 games, so we didn't win a whole lot very big. And we happened to be ahead of Houston, I think, pretty good bit that day. And Leo called me down in the middle of the game in the dugout, and he said, this might be a good day for you to try left-handed. Now, I'd had two days of batting practice left-handed in my life. And so he said, this might be a good day. Well, in Leo's work, in Leo's man, that means go do it. And so I did. I went up. My first time I hit a line drive to the shortstop, hit it good. Second time I hit a line drive to center fielder. So I was 0 for 2, but feeling good. So yeah. So we did that, and I was hitting about 230, 235 at that time, and then all of a sudden it went down to 190 or something. And I'm leaving the field one day, and I walked up to Leo and said, Skip, what do you think? Think we ought to wait till next spring to try this again? He said, no, we're not going to go anywhere this year. You keep doing what you're doing. So I got to give him all the credit for that. But I can tell you, I was ready to hang him up. But
what a story. What a story.
Well, I ended up hitting 266 that year, I think, hit a little over 300 the second half of the season. So, it was enough. Now, I wasn't swinging very hard. I'd get a big bat and just try to put it in play,
Yeah, I never even knew that, Don. And to see that you did it during the season, I mean, and wow, and Leo stuck with it, and then you were hitting, high 200s and getting on base and scoring all those runs, and wow, and became the leadoff hitter after that, right?
Well, that's what gave me the opportunity to do that. Yeah, and again, I give Leo credit. Or maybe blame. Some people may blame him, but anyway.
No, man, that's a big moment in your career. Wow. Now, getting back to you and Carolyn. So you got married in 1965. Now, how did that relationship come into play? Did that happen after college, or tell me that?
Yeah, it was after. Yeah, actually, we started dating maybe senior year in college, and a year later, we got married. So we did good. It was we've really been fortunate.
You guys have just had just an amazing life and ride, and you could see. I mean, I remember you guys as a kid, and just how kind and genuine both of you were. And I remember Keith and Kevin; they were younger than me and Ronnie. But just see the direction that your family went and how steady and solid
you have been. It's just really amazing. Now, where did you
that means so much to me. I want you to know that. Thank you.
Oh, it's the truth, man. It's the truth. You and Billy Williams were just great family men, and not taken away from anyone else, but it's just, you guys were steady and solid. When Carolyn and you got to Chicago, where did you live? Did she stay with you during the season, obviously?
No, yeah, she was with me, and we just found an apartment, somewhere early in the years. We certainly weren't in any position to buy a house, or we'd been afraid to if we had all the money. But we lived out in the Des Plaines area. I remember my first year, and then just we'd have to find, and she did most of the looking and getting, finding us a place to live. And then after about 4 years or so, 5 years on exactly, but we bought a home out in Northbrook, and y'all lived in Glenview. And so that's next suburb over. So we were blessed. We got a chance to be with your family, and so we were fortunate to do that.
Yeah, it's just a great time in life, growing up in that environment with all you guys. I just, learned so much just by being around you. You don't realize that till later in your life, and the traits you pick up and the different ways you treat people, and the strong character that whole team had was just beautiful.
It was a great group. I've said it many times. It was a great group of people, good guys on that team.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about Billy Williams, George Altman, and I could just Ernie Banks. I mean, you just name guys that were just super people.
Yep. And did you obviously did you have a second job in the winter, Don, in the beginning?
Oh yeah, I'd always try to do something. You know what I did? I wanted to try to find some kind of job in the winter that I might could apply when I get out of baseball, and it didn't always work, but at least I felt like I was accomplishing something, and but it was just different things.
Yeah. And did you in the before you bought the home in Northbrook, did you go back to Mississippi? Is that where you were living?
We did for the first 2 or 3 years. We did, and then we stayed there the rest of the time.
And where did Kevin and Keith go to school?
Well, they went to school. You mean at the early years? They went to Northbrook out there.
Yeah. Okay.
And and it was good, man. We did good.
Got it. That's great, man. Well, let's get to 1969. What do you remember most about it?
A lot of tears. No, it was honest to goodness, Jeff. It was the best of times for us and the worst of times at the end. But we thought not cockily. We just thought we were going to win that thing, and I thought we were. But the Mets had other ideas. Boy, you talk about your dad. He never did get over the Mets.
No,
but
no, he didn't.
Yeah. No, he didn't. But but we played hard. The Mets just wouldn't lose down the stretch, man. And,
they were like 37-11. Yeah.
Oh, their pitching was just so. Oh, I wish you hadn't told me that. The pitching was just so dominant.
Yeah, I mean, like you guys were such on a roll, and then you go to the All-Star game. You and my dad are starting on the left side. Him at third and you at short. I mean, that was an amazing thing, and most of the guys on the infield made the All-Star squad. What was that experience like for you? That All-Star game?
Oh, well, let me tell you. Let me say this. I won't say this because I think I'm 100% right, but there are a lot of times Carolyn tells me I'm not. So, but seems like in that game, one of the greatest thrills. Ronnie and I did start that game, I believe, and but I think that at one point in time we had all four of our infielders playing in that game at the same time. And you might have to look that up for me.
Yeah, no, you did. I I looked that up, and that's quite a feat. Just look at the starting lineup. It's Matty Alou leading off, you hitting second, Henry Aaron hitting third, Willie McCovey hitting fourth, my dad hitting fifth, Cleon Jones sixth, Johnny Bench seven, Felix Mion eight, and then Steve Carlton pitching. I mean, wow.
I'd take that team. I'd take that team against anybody. It was amazing, boy. I was just glad those dudes were on my side.
Hey there, Chi-Town beer enthusiasts. This week's episode is sponsored by Dry Hop Brewers Group. They have a trio of Chicago brew pubs that you need to check out. First, Dry Hop Brewers, located just a mile southeast of Wrigley in the Lakeview East neighborhood on Broadway. Dry Hop Brewers is known for their handcrafted beers, artisanal pizzas, and burgers that will tantalize your taste buds. Plus, their cozy and inviting atmosphere makes it the perfect spot to relax and enjoy a pint with friends. Next is Corridor Brewery and Provisions, a half-mile east of Wrigley in the charming Southport neighborhood. Corridor Brewery is a haven for beer lovers and foodies alike. With their carefully curated beer selection and food menu featuring locally sourced ingredients, you're in for a treat. From their juicy burgers to their mouth-watering pizzas, Corridor Brewery and Provisions is the ultimate destination for a satisfying meal paired with a perfectly crafted brew. Last but certainly not least is Crushed by Giants Brewery, located steps off the Mag Mile in Streeterville at the corner of Rush and Ohio. This hidden gem offers a wide range of bold and flavorful beers, burgers, pizzas, and tasty shareables. Their prime location is the ideal spot to grab a pint while exploring Chicago. Whether you're a local or visiting the Windy City for the first time, save 10% on your next order. Dine in or carry out at all three locations with code SANTO.
Crackerjack.
This call is being recorded.
Carolyn Kessinger, this is Jeff Santo. You are my crackerjack call.
Your crackerjack call. Oh well, you might be in trouble.
No, so nice to talk to you. Wow, we've been texting each other, but it's so great to get you on the phone. I hope I didn't interrupt any pickleball tournaments.
No, actually, I didn't play this morning.
I hope you get out there later today. So
probably not. It gets too hot in Mississippi later in the day.
I bet. Well, you know, I talked with Don, and it was so nice to reconnect. And just, you know, your story, the both of you, it's going to be 60 years of marriage coming up soon, a couple years, right?
Right.
Wow.
It's because I got married in 68. I mean, we've been married 68 years in February. Sorry.
Oh, 58 in February. Okay. And You both were from Forest City, Arkansas.
That's correct.
And what were your families like? Were they similar? I mean, he told me you were a bit younger. So talk about that. When did the connection really start?
Well, he was a good bit older than me, but I always knew him because he was a superstar through high school, football, basketball, and they really didn't have a baseball team back then. And a funny story about that is when he called we were married, but he called to tell me he had signed we were not married, but he called to tell me he had signed a professional baseball contract. And I said, I thought you were a basketball player. I mean, that's the truth. So anyway, he said, well, my chance to stay in the game the longest is with baseball. And he was correct on that. But I never remember not knowing him because I grew up, you know, looking up to him. And Forest City was a very small town. And so we knew families. We shared some friends, even though I was younger. So for part of my time, I would have been too young to hang with his friends. But I started dating him in my junior year, kind of over the objections of my parents because there was still a big age difference, you can imagine.
Right,
but, yeah. Too late. I was already in love. So we got married in February and headed to spring training. So we just young and in love and not much to our name, but we were happy.
That's amazing. Now, he went off to Ole Miss and played both. What were you doing during that time? You're kind of a junior and senior in high school. Did you visit, or how did that go?
Yeah, we had some snail mail going back then too. But it it was hard because he was traveling with his two-sport career here at Ole Miss, and I was a college student in Arkansas State, which is in Jonesboro, Arkansas. But, you know, we made it happen for a year, and then we just decided we were going to go on and get married because living apart just wasn't working for us. So we got married, and 58 years later, we're still married.
Right. It's amazing. Now, when you got married, did you go right to Chicago? Because he signed in 64, you got married in 65. What was that transition like for you?
Well, I went to, like I said, I was a newlywed, so everything was really wonderful and strange at the same time. But when we left spring training, he was the last, in 65, he was the last person to be cut from the roster. And so he was just devastated. And I don't think at that time I realized that this has been his dream forever. So I hope I was compassionate enough. But I'm thinking, okay, well, we'll go to Arlington, Texas. That's cool. So we set up a little apartment in Arlington, Texas for AA. And the reason for AA, I don't know how much he told you because he don't like to talk about himself very much, but he was the last person cut from the roster. He was very upset. But, you know, you are where you are. And they sent him to Texas League because that was where they were sending most of their prospects because the Arlington Stadium was new that year, and they were trying to put a number of people in there by putting their best prospects there. So I think that was an advantage to him. He started out in AA. Excuse me, I don't know where my frog came from. And he started out in AA. And we were there only 6 weeks, and we got this call. And this is the truth. He said, hey, I've been called up to Chicago, and I started crying because he'd been gone for 2 weeks, and he was on his way home that night, and now he's calling me, telling me he's not going to come home that night. He's going to Chicago. So here's this young girl raining on his ring, crying and just stamping all over his dream of being a big league baseball player. But I quickly got over that.
Oh, my. Wow. You know, so in 65, he was at spring training and didn't make the roster. That's similar to my dad in 60. He thought he was going to make the team, too, and got sent back down. I didn't know that with Don. And so he was 2 weeks, and then he came back up then.
Yeah, very short. I mean, I forget what happened. I think there were just a series. I can't remember. He might have told you. A series of, I don't know, was that the year Ken Hubbs died in a plane crash or something? I don't remember. But anyway, they called him up. Yeah, called him up, and he wasn't really ready. And
that was it. Yeah, and so what did you, similar to like my mom was left in Houston, Texas, too, when my dad got called up. So the wives are kind of left alone in this, you know, minor league city. Where did you go from there?
Well, I called my mother back and said, Mama, come get me because Donnie's been called to Chicago. And so she had driven me from spring training because back then we didn't get to fly with family. I mean, this is just an 18-year-old wife, you know. I'm just boo-hoo and don't really know what his dream had been all these years. Because like I said, I thought he was a basketball player. I didn't really know much about his baseball.
Right.
And
wow. So you had an apartment ready to go, and then now he gets called up, and your mom takes you back home. And when did you head off to Chicago?
Well, she came to get me and pack up the car, and then I guess we went through Forest City because that's probably the way you would go. And then we went straight on to Chicago and found an apartment. You know, the wives have to do it all, find an apartment, you know, get keys, get set up. We did have, you may remember this, we didn't furnish it. We didn't furnish it. We rented furnished apartments because we didn't know what our schedule was going to be and how long we'd be there. So we rented just plastic covered furniture. But anyway, we thought we'd die. It was awesome. And then we lived out by the airport those couple of years before Donnie felt like we could look for a home, that we'd been there long enough that maybe we could look for a home. And so we started looking in Northbrook, and y'all lived in Northfield, right?
We lived in Glenview, right next to Northbrook there. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously your mom, Judy, was a big help to me on finding a dentist or starting with a doctor. And, you know, she was just a big help to me because she'd been there and she was established. And you two boys were not that much older than Keith and Kevin. I mean, some older, but not that much. So she was a big help to me for all things. As I was
that's great.
Yeah, your mom was great.
I didn't even know that. Yeah, that's great. And when was Keith born? What year was Keith born?
He was born in 67.
Okay.
And
yeah, I was born in
Kevin
63.
Yeah. Y'all were older than Keith. And then Kevin was born, Keith was born in 67 and Kevin in 69. So in 69, we had moved into a home in Northbrook because I'd heard we'd been married 5 years and my wedding gifts were still packed in Arkansas. And I just wanted some roots. I had my second baby on the way. I needed some roots. So we bought a home in Northbrook, and it was close to y'all. And we would, when the guys were on the road, the family sometimes would try to do things together. But we were pretty spread out, and it was, not always convenient for us to get together that much. But I certainly remember you two.
Oh, Ronnie and I always talk about this, Carolyn, because as kids, you remember the feelings and everything. We loved you and Don. I mean, we just talked about it the other day. I told him I talked to Don and I'm going to be talking to you. And you guys are just so nice, and just the whole team, but you guys especially. And, it's just amazing to see like your life and where it's gone. And talking to Don about it, the 3 generations of baseball players. And looking back now, when, you got Gray, and the Gray now is with the Astros in the big leagues. And literally almost 60 years ago, Don was, in the big leagues,
That's right.
What's that thought like to think about that?
Well, you don't want to to have a big league husband was amazing. But I kind of fell into that, not even really knowing what I was getting into. But having watched Gray and Chase, our other grandson who has played at Memphis, we watched them grow up, watched them play, watched them develop. It was clear that Gray was going to be super talented as a middle infielder, and that Chase was a pitcher. So they were very different positions, but they were each fun in their own. And so every time in my life, I would think, okay, well, baseball's over because Donnie's career was over. Then Keith and Kevin start in earnest on very high levels from the very beginning. They were really, really good all the way through. And then I said, okay, well, baseball's over. And then I have 2 grandsons that are in college baseball, both on D1 level. So, I don't know. Am I through now? No, I got a grandson playing, I guess. I'm not through yet.
Right. And what was the philosophy you and Don had when it came to Keith and Kevin playing baseball with the name and everything?
Yeah. Well, it did present problems like I know it did for you and Ronnie. But we tried to make it fun. In fact, if they didn't want to play a year, which there was one year Kevin did not want to play, we said, fine, let's don't play. And Keith never did that. Keith was just, hell-bent to get to the big leagues. But he was an infielder like Donnie, and it was so interesting. And y'all may have done the same things. When I would watch Keith play, and I remember Keith was only like 11 when Donnie got out of the game, so he really couldn't remember that much about his dad. But when I would see Keith playing shortstop out there, the way he moved the dirt, the way he got ready for a hitter, the way he reminded me so much of Donnie. And where that comes from, is it partly genetic or was it some part of his memory that we're remembering what his daddy did? I don't really know. But, we went to every single home game at Wrigley all those years, even if I had a baby wrapped up in my heavy coat because it was freezing, or I had one napped in my lap and one napped in my arms. We went to every game. I don't know if you remember that, but,
That is so cool. I had a feeling you were there all the time, right? As a kid, because me and Ronnie would run around.
There were, can't imagine I missed any home games, and I went to many away games. We wasn't as often as these wives, I think, can now because the money is so much different now than it was back in our day. But I did make one road trip all the way to the West Coast for the 3 cities out there. That was pretty cool. Went with the boys for that. We always made a trip to Atlanta or St. Louis because they were the closest to. And Cincinnati were our closest places to go that family could join us while we were there. So I did really see a lot of baseball games. Lots. And I still see a lot of baseball games.
You've been seeing baseball games for 58 years.
Yes, I have.
Now, that's so interesting because you probably didn't see my mom at the stadium that often. Was she there that much?
And not that I remember. We would sit down behind the screen, behind home plate, they would sit down the line behind the dugout. So she may have been there times that I didn't know she was there, but I think overall she did not come very much. But, that was my kind of relief. I've had 2 little children. Of course, she did too, but I had 2 little children running crazy for 2 weeks while they were on the road. And so I couldn't wait to get out of the house. So we just packed up and, went to the ballpark. And they took us there. And it was easy to make them. People used to say, how are they so good? And I said, well, they know that I can get a sitter if they're not good. And they won't. Right. That I would have done, and I would have had to do that one time, and then they would have been good. Kevin wasn't as interested as a spectator. Keith was. I don't know if you remember. He's got like a photographic memory anyway. He's amazing. He's so smart. But he knew every batting stance, and maybe you and Ronnie did too, every batting stance, every number. I'd say, what number is Pete Rose? What's his batting stance? And he would give it to me, and he was so young. Kevin would not so much. He would play trucks on the ground in front of my seat, and then he would take a nap. He wanted to go because they got to run on the field like y'all did at the end of the game.
Right.
So that was his incentive to go and behave.
God, that is so interesting. I mean, you're at every game, and that's probably what you take in all those games, right? And they're with their mom, knowing that the mom is dedicated to the game. And did you ever keep score, or you had your hands full? You couldn't keep score.
I knew how to keep score, but I didn't have time with the little ones there. But when they started playing on fairly competitive levels at 10 or 11 years old, the other mamas didn't know how to keep score, so I did keep score then for the teams.
You would go to all their little league games too.
Oh yes. And it was. And it was only one of me because Donnie was playing. So most of the time, Donnie didn't get to see them play. But and I didn't have a cell phone in my hand to be able to take every batting, every pitching, every fielding play because they were humongous beta something or another. You may know more than I do, but they were huge, and I couldn't carry those around with me to record the things that the boys were doing. But Donnie missed a good bit of their early ball, but he and I, of course, kept in touch. And then they didn't just play baseball; they played basketball. And then they played, Kevin played a little soccer. And so they were playing a lot. And I can remember my year in St. Louis, or a year and a half in St. Louis, when I didn't have a mama, a sister, or best friend in the town close to me, but I was living in St. Louis. And, of course, the boys didn't want to stop their life. So Keith was on a competitive team. Kevin was on a competitive team. And, of course, Donnie was playing at the stadium. And so I would be sitting in some gosh-awful 100-degree dirt patch out and around St. Louis, and I'd have somebody else take Keith, and I'd be with Kevin. The next time I'd take Keith, and somebody else would take Kevin, and then I'd have to be listening to Donnie on the radio because I couldn't go and leave the boys. There was only one of me. So those were hard years, but wouldn't take anything for them. And our play-by-play guy here in Oxford for the Rebels, who's been here for, I don't know, I've been knowing him since he was 17, so he's been here a long time. And he told me that he thinks that I've seen more baseball games than even he has, and he's seen over 500 baseball games and called 500 baseball games. Well, I know I have because I started with my brothers back in Forest City, and then they played, Little League and stuff like that in Forest City, and then went directly and started dating Donnie when I was 17, and so just, I don't know how many games I've seen. It's a lot, but
it's a lot.
Anyway,
You're in the thousands for sure. I mean,
I really ought to sit there and take year by year, pull it up on the internet because I literally was at every game. Every game.
You were so dedicated to the game for Don and your boys. I mean, that's really I see the connection now. Not that my mom. It's different for different people, but we were a little older, I guess, and maybe, when we were going to school, we'd go to most of the games in the summer with my dad, drive down there. But that's remarkable. It really is. And when you started, like when in 65, when Don started playing full time with the Cubs, and you were, obviously you didn't have Keith yet. You were the same way, right? Every game?
Yeah. But Keith didn't slow me down, neither did Kevin. So, I mean, we just went. And they were glad to go because they were interested in playing on the field just like y'all were after the game.
Yeah.
So even if they say, I don't want to go, I'd say, okay, well, I can get a babysitter because I was going. And,
right, yeah.
And they might take a nap or get to misbehaving, but it didn't take me but to look at them and say, okay, I get a babysitter next time, you can stay home. And I had a good little babysitter that I had in Northbrook that was just turned out to be a wonderful babysitter. So it wasn't that they didn't love her, but it just, you know, if they wanted to play on the field, they wanted to stay home. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Did Don, when Don did retire from baseball, did he work with the boys a lot?
Well, you know, he played with them if they asked to be played with. We never, ever, because you didn't even, we had a worn out backyard when they were little living in Northbrook and because we had to reside the backyard every year because they loved to hit that tennis ball over the fence in the yard. And so we just replaced the fence and replaced the backyard, but
we had the same thing. Yeah.
What did you do to make them love the sport? And I said, I didn't do anything. They were just born wanting to do it. And the same with my Gray, his first word was ball. And he was about 16. Yeah, I'm truthfully. And he was about 16 months old. And his fun at grandmother's was to sit in our floor in what we called our big room. And I would take a small plastic, probably pool ball or something, a little, you know, they shoot hoops in a pool or something with it. But and he would sit on the floor with his legs V'd, and I would sit on the floor because back then I could sit on the floor and get up, which was amazing. But I would roll the ball back and forth between his legs, and he thought he had died, gone to heaven. And then as he got a little older, we had where we went to church had a gym, and because we went to church there, I was able to get in all hours. And Gray and I would go out there, and I'd pick him up every Thursday from kindergarten, and we'd go to McDonald's to get food, and then we'd go out to the gym. And we would play all afternoon in the gym. We would shoot hoops on the little 10-foot gold, and then we would play foosball, and we'd play ping pong, and then we'd play racquetball, and I don't know, whatever he wanted to do is what we did. And he still, to this day, I said, Gray, do you remember our Thursdays together? And he says, oh, Graham, our Thursdays were the best. So, you do make memories, you know. I'm sure he outgrew me pretty quick. He outgrew me pretty quick. He was pretty. Yeah.
That's outstanding. I mean, wow, you put in so much time. That is just amazing. You know, and going to back to 69, obviously you were at every game at home. What do you remember most about that year?
Well, I was pregnant with Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
And I started buying my clothes in August. You know, Kenny Holtzman pitched that no-hitter. And he pitched that. So for the first time, I allowed myself to believe that we were actually going to go to the World Series because you didn't have playoffs back then. So I went out and bought me some cute little maternity clothes. And then after I'd done that, on the way, I'd still going to all the games. And we'd get in the car after a loss. And one loss wasn't so bad, but the next loss was bad. And we started falling in the standings, and then his little wife, who was big pregnant, started crying all the way home. Poor Tommy. He couldn't feel bad about himself because I was crying because I wanted to go. It was just sad for all of us. I mean, I don't know how much you remember, but it was just been so long for the Cub fans, and we'd had such a great year. And really, you know, at least 3 out of those 5 years, we should have gone to the World Series because we were so good. But it just didn't happen. I mean, it didn't happen, and so I was big pregnant, and so I was crying. So he had to work hard at keeping me from crying. So anyway, that's what I remember about 69.
You know, it's interesting you say that because I say that to my mom, and she says it's a sadness. You know, her watching the games at the end, she would watch them at home and just cringe. And I do remember a lot of that season, and me and Ronnie were around, and I don't remember the heartbreak so much, but it just over the years, you know, the talk of it, and the guys were such a great group of guys. Yet, it was, you know, and they did that. That was the first year they were going to actually have playoffs because 69 they changed they changed where they had divisions. So 68 they were doing good. And then 69 they made it where it was they split it. They added 4 teams, and so there was going to be a playoff. And it just that team was so special. And, like you were talking about with your sons, Keith and Kevin and Gray, and loving baseball. Me and Ronnie were the same way. That's all we did growing up was play baseball, right? Either you're playing in the backyard, you're playing at spring training. And it was our lives because it was everything that was talked about. And, so I get amazed, Carolyn, that the sons that go on and make it, like your boys did and Gray, and I have such respect for that because there's so much that has to happen for that to happen. And it's really being steady and solid and confident and in just not baseball, but in life, I feel.
It builds character. Baseball is a character building sport for sure. Because, the best hitters in the game fail 7 out of 10 times. It's just a hard, it is, and you've got to shoot better than that basketball, and for sure football, you better make your tackles. So it's just a really gut-wrenching but rewarding sport, and it has given Donnie and I a very good life, and our son's a good life, and Gray is getting his shot at the big leagues, and of course he in 1 year will make more money than Donnie and I made probably in our whole career, but we're happy for that. We're happy for that. So.
Yeah, it's and did Keith played in the big leagues for a few years. He had a 9-year career.
He had 41 games in the big leagues, I think.
Okay.
And he really thought that he was going to go back the following year to big league spring training, and and he really thought he was. And then over the winter, they made a trade or two, and they kind of took his place, and as a free agent they brought in. And so anyway, I think it was Boone, was that his name? Yeah, I don't know who it was, but anyway, so he didn't ever get to where he really wanted to be. But he has 41 days in the big leagues. He got a big league home run in Denver, which I got to see. Amazing.
Oh, wow.
And so he has memories that you don't have, and Ronnie doesn't have, and Kevin doesn't have. So, and Gray is getting even more memories for that. We're grateful, but couldn't be proud of our two boys. First of all, they were great kids growing up, never gave us any trouble. Both graduated from college. Both have wonderful marriages and 4 great grandchildren. fine.
That's beautiful.
Grandchildren.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And that's because of you and Don, leading the way. And it's just a beautiful baseball story. I was telling Don that, a beautiful family baseball story because, your whole family, and obviously Don being so steady and solid at shortstop and as a person, and you the same way, going to every game, so dedicated to the game and to your life. And that's not easy to do, and I know that because, I grew up in a baseball family and and that's the key. And you could just see that's why Gray's there. Because of, it carried over to Keith and Kevin, and now it's in Gray. And it's just beautiful to look back at that, Carolyn, and see the life that you guys have had together. Yeah. When did you leave Chicago, and why did you leave Chicago?
When Donnie got traded to the Cardinals, the boys were, of course, older then, and they were really hating to miss their summer teams back in Memphis. And school was getting harder for me to pick up and tutor myself for them. So we just decided when he got traded to St. Louis, we'd going to move back to Memphis, which was the closest big town to where we had grown up in Arkansas. And so they, got to stay in their regular classrooms, their regular school. And for a while, we got to still go to spring training with the boys, and I could tutor. And then, of course, they gradually outgrew my academic ability to tutor. So I had to stay home. And then the separation became greater, and Donnie missed more, and it just got harder. And so I think that was part of his reason for retiring early, was that he was just missing everything. And like I said, if I'd had a cell phone that I could hold in my hand, and didn't feel like he was missing so much. But I didn't. And he had to live through my eyes, and he felt like I was knew what I was talking about. As far as baseball, and telling him what the boys were doing, and didn't try to be unbiased but honest about what they were doing and not doing. But anyway, so he retired probably earlier than he had to do, but we've made a good life in Memphis, and the boys had good high school careers, good college careers, and then of course we all live in Oxford now. And Gray had good high school here. His team won back-to-back state championships when they were in high school, and that was largely due to 4 kids that Ole Miss drafted. I mean, not drafted, but signed after high school. They drafted 4 kids out of a little high school. No, not drafted, huh? Signed.
Well, they would draft them. Yeah. Absolutely. The baseball draft's going on then. Yeah, it didn't happen when Don was here, but yeah.
No. Ray was drafted out of high school, but he chose to go to college, and so he made that decision. We're happy so that he got his degree and he grew up with some supervision, because in college you still have a coach giving you a curfew and requiring other rules. And so I don't know if Gray followed them all, but he didn't ever get in trouble anyway. So, that helped because Donnie began to see more of what they were doing. And, Kevin also ran track on a very high level. He was really a speedy little fella. And of course, Donnie ran well, if you'll remember. He ran really well.
Oh, yeah.
And Kevin ran really well. Keith must have taken after me because he didn't run very good. But,
So that's the years when you went to Mississippi and Don then went to Chicago again. Did you fly back and forth to Chicago at times when he was with the White Sox?
We tried. We rented a home back out in Northbrook and tried to be there for the summer, but it just didn't work for the boys because they just wanted to play. They wanted to play on their own teams back at home with their own friends, and they were asking them to give up a lot. So we did come back and forth. That was the long and short of it. I did the best we could. We rented a house out in Northbrook. I would come as soon as school was out, and then I would leave early to go back because in the South, school opens very early. So, we did the best we could, and it wasn't ideal. And I'm sure the increased separation because of the age of the boys, made Donnie want to retire earlier because he certainly could have stayed. Mr. Wrigley told him at the end, you can stay with us. And he just said, it's just better for me to, and I think Bill Beck would have done the same thing, but he just was a good daddy. What can I tell you?
Yeah, well, you were a great mom too. I don't think there's a stronger baseball mom that I've ever talked to, like what you did and what you went through, the dedication for that many years. It's amazing. It really is, Carolyn.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I don't really think about it being that way. You fall in love, and his career was my career, and it wasn't that I wasn't a sports person. I loved what we did, and my boys followed in the path, which they didn't have to, but they did. And now we got Gray following in the path. He didn't have to, but he did. And Chase too. I mean, Chase played at Memphis. He was a pitcher at Memphis. He just didn't get to go to the next level, but he's just as an amazing grandson. And we got just to see our beautiful granddaughter. She'd take your breath away. I mean, she's just beautiful. So
that's amazing. Yeah. Well, and like you said, everyone went to Ole Miss, it looks like too. So you just had this great base in Mississippi. So, it was.
Yeah, but that I graduated from the University of Memphis and got my law degree at the University of Memphis. So I'm kind of the black sheep. I'm the black sheep in the family.
Oh, black sheep in the family. You got a law degree too? Oh, yeah, Carolyn. It's unbelievable. I mean, you didn't stop.
No.
Did you do their contracts too? Did you do their contracts when they signed?
I probably read them, but they've got stuff they're not going to change in it. But I'm sure I read them. And
right. Oh my goodness! Wow. Well, it's so good to talk to you, Carolyn. Thank you for taking the time, and Don too. Reconnecting with you guys just gives me such a good feeling. It really does.
Great. I remember you and Ronnie well. I mean, and Judy. Is your mom still alive?
Yes, she is.
Oh,
yeah,
good.
she lives in Arizona. And Linda's out in Arizona too. Ronnie's there too now. And Linda, my mom was pregnant with Linda during '69. So you had Kevin, and she had Linda. Yeah. They became 69. What month was Kevin born?
He was born in December. He was a Christmas
So was Linda.
Baby.
December what?
December 27th. It's Kevin's birthday.
Oh, my. Linda was December 9th.
Yeah. We had Christmas
Wow.
babies.
Yeah, my mom is doing well. She's had MS, for quite a few years now, almost 30, I think. But she's a fighter, and she's, she's still great in that personality. And so, and she said to say hello.
Please tell her hello, because she was super helpful for me and was supportive of our young career. And of course, I'm sure Donnie and Ronnie carpool some into the game so that the wives could go in later. So it was good. Yeah. We had a good group. I mean, that bunch of guys loved each other, and they were so good, and really should have won at least 2 pennants during that time.
I know.
But life just does stuff,
You're so right. It was such a great group. I like you said, everyone got along. Everyone was family, and it was just great for me and Ronnie to have that experience, and it stayed with us forever. And even through hard times, you go back to that, and you just somehow you get on the right track again. And because of being around people like you and Don and Billy and all the guys, and Beck was hilarious, huh? How about Beck?
He was hilarious, and Jim Hickman was another Southerner. I mean, and Randy Hunley was a hoot.
Yep.
And he was a Southerner. So, it was just a good group. Those guys really loved each other, and they played together as a team. I don't know why. I mean, I don't know why they didn't win at least 1 pennant out of those 5 years from there, because they really were the best team in baseball. But it just didn't happen. And they were. So,
they were.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity to visit with you again and to rehash some old times. And please tell Judy that I said hello, and give her an update on what the Kessinger boys expanded are still doing. So, and then Donnie and I are doing great. I mean, God is so good that we both still have good health. We both still love each other, and we are getting to enjoy at least 2 grandchildren now that are still playing ball. Chase, I guess, is out now, but he's going to be coaching, so he'll be in it in another capacity. So we have a good life, and I'm grateful for that.
It's beautiful. Beautiful.
All right.
Go enjoy pickleball. I know you're not playing today, but Gray's playing today, right?
Gray is playing today. So I don't know if he'll be in the game because, he's a utility guy right now, but he is in the big leagues, and we're thankful for that.
Well, that's a good team he's on. You know what I mean? So
it is a very good team.
Yeah.
They're kind of like the Cubs were. I mean, they've got 4 infielders that are all-stars.
Right.
And they're just good. And so he's I'm not happy all ball players like to play, but he is happy to be on the team. He wants to compete and to be ready when his name is called. So we're going to try to get to see him this next week. We're going to try to make another trip to Houston to see him. So.
Oh, great. Great. That's great. And that team, and Dusty Baker, Dusty and my dad were really close when Dusty managed the Cubs. My dad was broadcasting. I was fortunate to travel that year when I did a documentary, so I got to know Dusty. What a great guy. I'm so glad he won it. He and the toothpick in his mouth. I'm afraid Exactly. Yeah. Well, all right, Carolyn, you take care. All right.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Take care now. Bye.
That's our show, folks. Special thanks to our cool crackerjacks, Scott Nelson, Jim McCauley, Debbie Foley, Sherry Matarisi, Terry Rankin-Gurovitz, Terry O'Brien, and Gary Tallman.
This show is made possible by all of them and to you for listening. If you want to support the show and be a cool crackerjack yourself, subscribe on our Patreon page by clicking the link below this episode, or go to our website, www.peanutspopcornandcrackerjacks.com.
Remember to click the follow button for next week's episodes.
And don't hesitate to write, give us suggestions, or tell us how you're liking the show. Email jeff.ppcpodcast@gmail.com.
My closing quote: baseball is like church. Many attend, few understand. Leo DeRocher.
Ain't that the truth? Toodaloo.
SantoFilms.com, the place to buy This Old Cub DVDs, posters, and This Old Cub t-shirts. Get yourself one now at SantoFilms.com.